Decisions around security aren't always straightforward. So, how do you know how many controls are too many controls? Are you covering all the security gaps within your organization? Are your users sharing passwords outside your organization? What if your users forget your LastPass accounts? Is there a way you can reset their master password without destroying their account? Well, today we're going to see that and many more. Hi, my name is Ranjeet, a senior solution consultant at LogMeIn, and today we'll be talking about LastPass policies. As a LastPass administrator, you have over 100 policies that you can customize. These policies allow you to set up security standards within your organization. For example, if you want to set up a multi-factor authentication, you have a policy for that. What about setting password security strength? Well, you have a policy for that too. You can click the link on the description below to know the different policies that LastPass has to offer along with the use cases. However, on this episode, we'll be covering about the 5 password policies that are most requested for and how to use them and enable them and set them as a standard norm. One great feature of LastPass is the ability to share login credentials to other users. If a particular team or an end user were to share these credentials, all they need to do is create a shared folder and share these credentials with the users. However, as an administrator, we can look at how you can control who they can share these credentials with and the controls that they can have around it. Now, talking about sharing, let us take an example of a team lead who shares credentials with the users. What happens to that shared folder if the team lead were to leave the organization? Would everyone lose access to the password, or can that be controlled by you as an administrator as well? Now, what if the end user forgets his or her password? The master password. And if the end user forgets his master password, and for all those users who've been using LastPass, the only option is to delete their account and restart everything from scratch. But not anymore. LastPass has you covered with the master password reset policy that allows you as a super administrator or an administrator to reset the end user's master password without having to lose their data. Now, let's quickly talk about the personal accounts. You have 2 different types of users. A user who already has a personal account and would like to link his personal account with a LastPass enterprise account. And the other one is an end user where you want to create a personal account for them so as to improve their end user adoption with their linked personal account. So how do you set up a forced linked account or disable the linked personal accounts? We're going to look at how LastPass has a policy to do the same as well. Now, going back to the previous point, we now have users using the personal vault, saving their personal credentials. But how do you, as an administrator, ensure that they do not save their enterprise passwords into their personal vault? Now, LastPass has a policy for that too. LastPass ensures that you set up a policy which forces a user to save their personal passwords into the personal vault and the enterprise passwords into the enterprise vault, which means when the user leaves the organization, you as an administrator can delink the enterprise vault so that the end user loses all of their enterprise credentials when they leave the organization. Now, let's quickly take a look at all of these 5 policies and see how it's done from an administrative control. Before we continue any further into policies, first thing that you need to note is not go to the old UI console for LastPass. We recommend using the new admin console as this is going to be the norm going forward. So the LastPass policies page is made it very simple for administrators to view and control the policies right from here. So the first policy that we were talking about is sharing control. LastPass allows you to set up control for users by sharing of passwords, but to a particular domain rather than each and every account. So one such policy is restrict sharing by domain. So all you need to do is just search for this keyword and you will be able to find these details right out here. So here's the policy that we're looking for. What this policy basically does is it controls who can share passwords and to people from which domain. So let's say, for example, if I want to add list of domains, I have logmein.com and I also have lastpass.com. And then I want to set up a policy for the list of users who are affected by these group. So let's say I want to add the particular list of users. I can add my users, or I can add every user out there, or except for a certain set of users. What this basically does from an end user's perspective is that my user out here can only share with people within abc.com and logmein.com and not to anyone outside the organization. So what does this basically mean from an end user perspective? Let's quickly take a look at as an end user. We have now logged in as the end user. And now if the end user tries to share it, he can only share it with abc.com, which is basically the users at abc.com, or he can share it with users at logmein.com. So this is what the domain restriction basically means. Now, if this particular user tries to share with anyone outside these two different domains, so let's say, for example, he wants to share with someone or his own account with his Gmail account, technically, LastPass is not authorized to actually share this particular policy. So this basically restricts the access for sharing through a particular domain. Now, let's take a look at what happens to all the shared folders if the end user or the owner of that particular shared folder were to leave the organization. So LastPass has a policy called a super administrator policy where you can set yourself up as a super administrator. Now, it's part of the recommended policies, and if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will be able to see that there is an option called as every super administrator to access every shared folder within your organization. So when you add yourself as a super administrator to every shared folder, technically, anyone who shares any folder within the organization, a copy of that particular shared folder will be added to you. So you'll be able to get the ownership of this particular shared folder and be able to make any changes. So in this case, if Jeff were to leave the organization, I can remove Jeff successfully without having to any of these guys to lose their access and add the new user as the owner for that particular shared folder, whoever is replacing Jeff. The third policy that we're going to look at is how LastPass can reset your master password. Now, without having to use the end user's master password, LastPass also allows you to set yourself up as a super administrator. Now, when you do set yourself up as a super administrator within your organization, you now have the option of resetting the master password of an end user without having to delete their user account. So how do I go about and reset the user password? All I need to do is go into my user's account. And since I am now the super administrator, I can look up my users that I want to reset my password into, choose the user that I want to reset the master password, and click on Reset Master Password. This, for security reason, will ask me to enter my master password out here and reset the new password and share it with the administrator or the end user in this particular case. The fourth policy that we're going to look at is how you can allow your end users to link their personal password or personal accounts with the enterprise vault. So when you want to allow your users to link a personal account with the enterprise account, all you need to do is choose the policy that allows them or recommends them to link it. Given there are two scenarios, you can either prohibit users to link a personal account, or you can ensure that the users are forced to link their personal account. This way, you can improve the adoption. So user will be required to create a personal account if they don't have one, or will be required to link their existing personal account if they already have one. Now, what if the end user already has a personal vault and you want to ensure that their password is not being shared into the enterprise vault? So that's where LastPass has a policy where you can actually ensure that the personal passwords are being stored in the personal vault and the enterprise passwords are stored in the enterprise vault. So this is a policy called as Save Personal Sites to Personal Vault. Now, what this basically does, it ensures that the passwords that you save on the vault, depending on the domain of the username, it's actually categorized either into a personal vault or to the enterprise vault. Please click on the link in the description to know more about all of these policies. Now that we looked at the top 5 most requested password policies, let me just quickly sum up what we just learned. The password policy locked by domain. As you know, LastPass allows you to share passwords only through domain, and you as an administrator can set up a password policy that will lock users with sharing controls only for certain domains and not for every email addresses. The next one that we also saw was what happens if the end user were to leave the organization. So you can set yourself as a super administrator, thereby ensuring that you have ownership of that particular shared folder. So if the user were to leave the organization, you can then assign the ownership to someone else. The third scenario was where you can reset the end user's master password without having to delete or create a new account for the end user. So LastPass allows you to set yourself as a super administrator again, but in this case, to reset the end user's master password. But keep in mind, every time you reset your end user's master password, you will have to enter your master password to authenticate yourself. Then the fourth option was to allow users to link their personal account into LastPass. Now, LastPass can either ensure that all the users are required to link their personal account, or either create a personal account before linking it, or you can also lock the usage of personal accounts completely. However, we do recommend that you use personal account to ensure that there is a higher adoption rate for LastPass. Now that you have linked the personal account, you can also use the password policy, which ensures that the personal account passwords are stored in the personal vault and the enterprise account passwords are stored in the enterprise vault, so that the users do not actually link one to the other and you lose your enterprise passwords when the user leaves the organization. This way, ensuring the policy which enforces certain controls will allow you to save your personal account into personal vault, so when you leave the organization, you can continue using your personal passwords, whereas you lose access to all your enterprise stuff. That concludes our episode on LastPass policies. As mentioned earlier, LastPass has over 100 policies. Please click on the link provided in the description to know more about these LastPass policies and how to enable them. If you have any more questions around the policies or in LastPass in general, please reach out to us at the LogMeIn support page or reach out to your channel support manager. We hope you found this Mastery Moments episode useful. If you did, please click on the like button and also consider subscribing. If you also click on the bell icon, you'll be alerted of our new upcoming sessions as soon as they are released. Thank you for joining me on this episode, and I look forward to catching up with you soon on the next one. This is Ranjeet Money signing off.